Hi, I'm Darryn Farrugia and welcome. Many years ago when I started taking drum lessons at the age of 15 with my teacher, Frank Corniola, he had this thing that he introduced to me on my very first lesson, and that was that you had to practice the 3 basic rudiments every day. And the way we did that was you would play a single stroke roll for a minute, starting with your right hand, and then you'd do the same thing again, starting with your left hand. Then you'd do the same thing with a double stroke roll, starting with your right hand for a minute, then again starting with your left hand for a minute, and then the same with a single paradiddle. So these 3 basic rudiments became a bit of a technical benchmark in terms of just having something to practice every day that you got tested on every lesson. Now, if you played these 3 basic rudiments and they were relaxed and they sounded good and they were even, you know, we had to meet a certain criteria, then Frank would put your tempo up. I think when I first started doing this, on my first lesson, I think I started at 138 if my memory serves me correctly. And then I ended up, you know, at about 186. And that was between the ages of 15 and 18. Now, if you've been following this channel for a little while, you know that I set myself a goal to be able to play a single stroke roll for a minute at 200 beats per minute. And I actually didn't achieve that goal. In fact, I was quite short of that mark. So it kind of discouraged me, and I got to be really honest with you, I kind of suffered a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of like a rudimental PTSD, if you want to call it that, where I kind of stopped practicing that, and I can't let that go for too long. So I've reintroduced practicing my technique, but in a slightly different way. I've kind of simplified everything, and this is what I'm doing. So this is what I'm going to share with you today. So here we go. So the very first thing I do is I focus on my single stroke roll, because that is actually the weakest rudiment for me. So I focus on that. And the way I do that is I use the 5-3-1 method. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'll leave a link to a video that I've done on the subject. I'll leave that link in the description below. But basically what I do is I start at 141 beats per minute. I'll explain why the weird number situation exists. But at this point, I start at 141 beats per minute, playing a single stroke roll starting with my right hand, and I do that for 5 minutes. The next part of the 5-3-1 method is to then take the tempo up by 5 beats per minute. So in this case, it'll go to 146, and then I'll play that for 3 minutes. After that, you know, a 30-second rest, and then I'll take the metronome up another 5 BPM to 151 beats per minute for 1 minute. So that's the 5-3-1 method. 5 minutes at one tempo, 3 minutes at another tempo, and then 1 minute at the final tempo. So why the weird number, 141? So basically, my target tempo in my first week that I started this was 150. So that means I would have had to have started the 5-3-1 method 10 BPM slower than that. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting this up every week by 1 beat per minute. So last week I was 150. This week I'm at 151, that's my goal. So once I've reached 151 beats per minute with my single stroke roll, then I'll play a single stroke roll for a minute again, this time leading with the left hand. Then beyond that point, I will play a double stroke roll at 151, starting with my right hand. I'll do that for a minute, and then I'll do the same thing starting with my left hand for a minute. And then I'll play a single paradiddle for a minute, starting with my right hand. And then I can also start that with my left hand as well. So you're looking at about, by the time you factor in resting in between, you're probably looking at about 18 minutes of a technique routine. And this one is really good for me because when I was focusing on the single stroke roll, admittedly, I neglected a lot of other rudiments, especially double stroke rolls and paradiddles. So I started to notice that they were feeling a little less enjoyable to play. They just didn't flow, they didn't feel good. So here's a brief demonstration of what I do. So I start off at 141 playing a single stroke roll for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to spare you the time. I'm just going to play it for a few bars so that you can hear that. Then the metronome goes up by 5 BPM, so now we're at 146. This is for 3 minutes. Then I'll take it to 151, which is my target tempo for the week, and I'll play this for 1 minute, again leading with my right hand. Once I've played the single stroke roll for a minute with my right hand, I'll do the same starting with my left hand. That's actually quite hard to do and very important to do, so don't neglect your left hand lead single stroke roll. So that's the single stroke roll taken care of, and obviously I spend more time on that, as I said, because it's my weakest rudiment. So once I've done the single stroke roll, we've hit our target tempo of 151 for the week, then it's double stroke rolls for a minute starting with my right hand. And then the same starting with my left hand. Once I've got the doubles out of the way, then I'll play a single paradiddle. And I play a paradiddle with accents. So if you don't have 18 minutes to do this on a daily basis and you want to shorten the routine a little, then what you can do is lead with the left hand every second day, which is something worth considering. But as long as you do some of that left hand lead work, that's seriously important, because it does give you a better idea of, you know, the weaknesses and imbalances and unevenness in leading with the left hand, which we need to correct. So that's my practice routine. I'll put that routine in the description below if you want to check that out. Now, these are the important points here. It's important to stay relaxed. I remember when I was doing my single stroke roll challenge, and it was quite a long routine just on one rudiment. And what would often happen is by the end of that routine, I was actually quite burnt out. So there was no chance in hell that my hands were going to be able to respond the way that I wanted them to at the faster tempos. So what I'm doing instead is making sure that I stay relaxed at all times. If it's not relaxed, it's not going to happen. I'm playing on a softer pad, which is this ProLogic's red pad, which I really enjoy using. It doesn't give me as much rebound as, say, the green pad or any sort of typical hard rubber pad. So I'm enjoying this pad. And then in terms of tempos, I put my tempo up every week by 1 BPM. That's the plan. Now, as those tempos increase, it may be a little harder for me to put the tempo up by 1 every week. So then I may have to, you know, spread out how long it is I practice on one tempo. It could be 2 weeks, whatever. So stay relaxed, increase the tempo slowly, 1 BPM. So if I do this for a year and I take my tempo up by 1 BPM every week, then in a year I will have increased by 50 BPM on the tempo that I'm currently at. So something to think about. But this is really working for me so far. It's felt really nice, and it just feels nice to reconnect with my hands and feel like I'm practicing my rudiments again. So try it out. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, and remember to hit that notification bell so that you know when I've uploaded a video, which is every week. So until next week, have a great week. See you all soon. Bye.